Hello everybody, it's Phantom2502. Welcome back to another episode of my Satisfactory build. We are now at, let's see, 548 hours into this build. You can see my 1.1 tutorial for how we started it. And as you can still see, this is a progressive build, meaning, this was tier 0, 1. And we just kept adding on stuff and we never got rid of anything. At 550 hours, we have all the trophies, including the golden nut, and all achievements done. We have everything unlocked, everything completed. We are running at a steady, 77 to 79 million points per minute. So that's pretty good. And the power, we are using around 640,000 megawatts per minute. For some reason, the consumption is even above the max consumption. I'm guessing there's some sort of bugs to do with the randomness on the quantum encoder / converters, but it is a little weird that you can have a higher consumption than a max. Anyway, production of power 1.8 million or 1.8 terawatts of power. So I'm aiming for max points build here. We have all the power we need for the full build, and we've done the first part for points for 80 million. My aim is to try and get that up to like 460 million, but we aren't there yet. Anyway, we're going to take a train ride. I'll show you the whole world build. First, we're going to take a teleporter. Here's my teleport area to all of my factories and outposts. There we go. And this is what my circuit breaker looks like. Very complicated setup, so I can turn off and on every single thing in the world. And here for all of the teleporters individually. If anything goes wrong, I want to be able to shut everything down and then turn it up in phases. Alright, let's turn off the swamp one so we aren't wasting. Oh yeah, I have to put 2 elevators at this base because it's like 6 floors high. Unfortunately, the elevator doesn't go high enough. It goes all the way to the bottom, and unfortunately, well, that one doesn't reach the top floor, I guess. Anyway, yeah, this is looking pretty cool. Basically, we are turning a bunch of limestone into coal, and then, yeah, it's a package turbo fuel and a bunch of coal into diamonds, and then into time crystals on this floor. Next floor. Diamond harvester. And we'll go up to the quantum finishing floor. Which I'm kind of stuck in this tree. Not the most aesthetic build, but everything's running at 100%. Or at least should be. Here's what this floor looks like. And this is where most of these points are coming from. 120 AI expansion servers per minute. And that'll give you a lot of good points. As a byproduct, 1200 and 1120 on this line, 2320 dark matter crystal is all being sunk. That's the majority of all my points being made right now. This swamp thing's like 6 floors in order to get all this done. Although a lot of things are being imported and brought in from around the world. I guess we have to wait for a train. There we go. Alright, my stations. So, got one train line for this entire build. It's way different than a lot of other people's setups. In this train we have, that's 1,000 there. This one is, I think it's rubber in here, plastic in here. And we have 2 containers of packaged turbo fuel. This one's time crystals. And this will be petroleum coke and reanimated sand for this line. This train's mostly just concerned with like bringing stuff here to be processed. Except for the 3rd container, which is bringing stuff in. And look, 1625, 1,054 a minute. Not just small numbers. I have a train working. It's working at good capacity. Let's get on this train. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. There we go. We'll take the train tour. It's about a 40-minute train ride. My train names I with numbers if they're on the inside line and O if they're on the outside line. I can't tell what train we're on. Maybe O14 is what we're on. Something like that. Basically, I'm trying to run one train at maximum every 2 minutes in order to maximize throughput on this line. They're not spaced out completely evenly, but it allows for something that's a 50 stack to have 800 a minute, or liquids to be 800 a minute per container. 100 stack, 1600 per minute. Anything higher than that, due to belt capacities and how much time it's loading, unloading versus not, you get about 1850 capacity per minute per container. But if you have a 200 stack, you can do 3200. You just have to load and unload in 2 spots. Which, considering I got a bit of room for that, 2 stations for every stop, one for unloading, one for loading. You could do double load or double unload pretty easily for that. Here we are just dropping in some packaged turbo fuel. We got an outpost, taking all the local coal and turning that into time crystals. Some diamonds. Each one goes into 4 time crystals. And that just goes to the next stop. We'll load it. Oh yeah, and then my cryptic name. So Dune Desert's where we are. O means I'm on the outer line. And U is unload. That one will be L, which will be load. So that's when you see is I for inner line. This train is mostly concerned with the AI expansion server swamp area. The train going the other way is mostly dealing with getting stuff for power. The power plants. You know, you can't just make 1.8 terawatts of power in one location, pretty much. Although most of it will be. Kind of have major spots and then outposts for stuff that just needs to be brought in. Like, for example, the time crystals, you need like 1,800, so you need like 36,000 coal, which basically every single coal in the world and then some. So instead of carrying coal on trains, getting the packaged turbo fuel from one location and then distributing that and then getting the time crystals is much more efficient on the train. Each of my trains have 8 containers on each of the trains. That way and this way. The other way has 3 extra stops that this way doesn't, for nitric acid and hydrogen. Here I think it's just sulfuric acid, just sulfur being loaded on that train at the moment. I'm not using that nitric acid or nitrogen node at the moment. Here we come on to first power plant, our rocket fuel power plant, generating about 750,000 megawatts. all triple power shardage. All of these. One huge, massive power plant. Basically, we have about, there's a little factory in there doing compacted coal. I think around, about 1,300 a minute in there. Then this train on this side is bringing most of the stuff in for here. We're bringing in 2 containers of compacted coal for 3,200 a minute, and then 2 containers of nitric acids. Maximum capacity is 1,600 a minute, but I don't think we're doing it that much. And then our train is mostly picking up some reanimated SAM for the swamps, since we need extra, and then the byproducts of this whole area, which is rubber. We're loading onto our train, and it's producing at around 1,120. And that's going to be used for our expansion server area and for crystal oscillators for the nuclear plant. Look at that baby purr. Yeah, that's what 750,000 megawatt rocket fuel power plant looks like. I think it's like well over 10,000 rocket fuel per minute. Something like that. Anyway, some nuts numbers. As I said, not really the most aesthetic factory, but if you like big numbers, big factory. And one train line. Everything's one train line. That is a 12,500 megawatt fuel power plant, and is part of our initial fuel. That can be reused for something, basically bringing the fuel up a level, so if I bypass it, I can make some plastic and rubber later on. And that over there is just my initial oil for factories, just making stuff to beat the game. Then we're going to come on to our main factory, where we did everything to beat the game. We're storing everything in Nexus. There's the storage area. It's the ionized fuel area. We have our quantum finishing products there. As you see, this station has a 3-letter with upper and lower below, because it is an intersection for our line, just like the swamp fields. The 3rd intersection is the grass fields. Here we're going to pick up some time crystals. Here we only drop off the packaged turbo fuel below. No point of it spending any more time than it needs to on the train. Now we get a bit of radiation with the drones flying by. The drones are powered by plutonium fuel rods, and are carrying the 2100 uranium to the nuclear power plant. Going to be the highest outpost we have, the Crater Lake outpost. Could have done it lower, but I kind of tried to make as minimum amount of curves, and didn't want this train line to be too up and down. So Crater Lake just happens to be really, really high up this sky. It's an outpost similar to our Doom Desert, we'll drop off some packaged turbo fuel. See how much. 336 there, 120 here. Yeah, sometimes this is empty, sometimes it isn't empty. And that goes to the other side. We take in all the coal in the area and make our time crystals. time crystals. 300 a minute coming out of here. Yeah, it's one of the sizable outposts. Same with the Dune Desert. Of course, I think most of, not most of it, but quite a bit of it's being done in the swamp itself. I think, is it 8,400 coal is being processed there? I guess we're on O2, train O2. It's impressive to have an 80 million point factory and only have one train line. I don't really have. It's not like I'm actually bringing stuff to between factories not on train. If it's going between factories, it's on train. I am gathering local resources on those. Train deals for factory to factory, going around the world, you know? I am trying to minimize what I need to put on trains. You know, I'll get a lot of stuff done locally. So it's a smaller component. It doesn't take as much room on here before having to travel. This is the Western Canyon facility. One of the bigger facilities for outposts. It's doing quite a lot of things. We're actually pretty optimal to do it here. So for the rocket fuel power plant, we have some compacted coal being done. We have some nitric acid being done. We're doing quite a lot of those. Here we're obviously, with the whatever extra coal is left, we're dropping off our packaged turbo fuel and turning that into time crystals. We're also dropping off about 350 rubber per minute, and that's being turned into crystal oscillators for our nuclear power setup. And also for nuclear power setup, we have electromagnetic control rods, which are mostly being done here, the deuterium and copper side. And then here it's stators for the electromagnetic control rods. Oh yeah, and a huge water tower with some water coming in from down there. And yeah, the nuclear items get put onto our train, even though the power runs mostly the other side. A lot of the ancillary items, they come onto our train, just because it was the train that it was originally used for it. When I had a smaller train line. Yeah, electromagnetic control rods making, I think, 226 a minute and 48 crystal oscillators per minute. Yeah, that's. Then we go into one of our intersections, grass fields. Haven't done much here yet. Mostly just an outpost for, again, dropping off packaged turbo fuel upstairs this time and picking up time crystals downstairs. These outposts will get bigger as I get further on in the max build. The next step is to try to do 55 ballistic warp drives per minute, and then doubling it with summer sloops. Well, my summer sloops are currently being used for my factories, except for 16 for the AI expansion servers. We'll have to repurpose it. That alone should jump me up to like 370, 380 million points. But it should involve getting much bigger factories in other places. For those that think that 80 million points is just beginner numbers. Although, I guess I have bigger numbers than even quite a few YouTube streamers, so. Here's another outpost, the Southern Abyss. same as always with the packaged turbo fuel and the time crystals. Although here we're also doing some compacted coal for that rocket fuel factory. So that's what this train going the other way is picking up. I started with the rocket fuel. I mean, I guess after I was done the main game at 213 hours, I started with the fuel power plant. Then I did a turbo fuel power plant. We'll see that in the Blue Crater next stop. And then I did the train line, the world train line, and then the rocket fuel power plants with all these rocket fuel outposts. And then nuclear. So that's all my power. And then the AI expansion server stuff to use up. 45 a minute, not too much from here. The Blue Crater is a bit more of an outpost because we have a 100,000 megawatt turbo fuel factory there. It's pretty sad when that's a small outpost, or well, medium size, I guess. I guess it'd be similar to the Western Canyon outpost. We'll see it. But yeah, to call a 100,000 megawatt power plant small is pretty weird. Crater is where we're going to pick up our supply of packaged turbo fuel. At the moment it's making it around 2,400 a minute, transporting it around the world. Basically, when I turn on this entire factory, I use the 100,000 to be able to turn on power, because it takes that much to run the rocket fuel power plant. So it's in the stages, but once the rocket fuel power plant is online, I don't need the turbo fuel to be going into power. So when I start the AI expansion server, turn that on, it repurposes that turbo fuel into packaging. So here, got some nitric acid for the rocket fuel, some compacted coal for that turbo, for the rocket fuel, and then we have the turbo fuel power plant / packaging. Oh yeah, and then obviously coal, packaged turbo fuel coal thing. This is where it's 100,000 fuel. And basically what I'm doing to have this as lower priority is these are going up high and back low, and these packagers are down here. So because water prioritizes lower gravity, it will prioritize the packaged fuel if it's on, but if those packagers are off, they will go into the power plants. Some of the fuel is still going into the power plants at the moment because I think we're set up for like 2,200 or something packaged turbo fuel a minute. But I'm not done gathering all that. Some of it's needed for the next build. But yeah, this is where we're filled up on our packaged turbo fuel. And obviously also on some rubber and some plastic. Use plastic for the packaging for the iron plates, with the coated iron plates. Yeah, this 100,000 megawatts. Not too shabby. We're coming up on the Abyss Cliffs outpost, which is the final outpost for our rocket fuel power plants. Again, the nitric acid on top and compacted coal there on the bottom there for the train going in the other direction. Also some excess sulfur for the area. Go in. The excess coal gets turned into crystals. And a little bit extra on here is we're using all the oil in the area for petroleum coke. It's 1,728. I think we're making 1,800 a minute. And obviously we're going to get some rubber out of that, which we're going to bring with us. I think the turbo power plant was making around 500 rubber a minute. So we'll probably have around 1,300, 14 something rubber per minute. You see that nice petroleum coke, 1705. These numbers aren't 100% accurate. It varies with, the trains aren't coming exactly every 2 minutes. There's a little bit of variance between them. Here we get a good look at our swamp mega factory. That factory alone is bringing in over 5,000 iron a minute, I think over 1,000 katerium a minute, almost 2,000 raw quartz a minute, 5,000 some limestone a minute, 3,000 SAM a minute, plus an extra 1,000 from the reanimated SAM from the oil fields. Is it Spire Coast? Yeah, Spire Coast, the rocket fuel power plant. Anyway, but yeah, this is 6 floors. Iron the bottom, electronics, aluminum, little logistics. And then we looked at the top floors earlier. Basically, we've got a few paths. Yeah, look at that baby bird. A lot of machines. I upgraded my laptop from my 2016 Predator laptop, which would definitely not be running as well right now. Traded in, I've got a 2024 HP Omen, which is running way better. 100 minutes, 1,700 minutes. And this is where I drop off everything for this AI expansion server build. Bringing in 2,800 rubber per minute and over, let's see, what is it? Like 1,600 plastic, but that's being split because 2,800 is too much for one. Up here is bringing in some, and down here is bringing in the rest for the rubber and plastic. Nice, compact, and pretty clean build, just not fancy. I like just to see the, efficient throughput and efficient design. Titan forest, a little bit of radiation on it. Over here we have the Mountain Lake facility. This is doing a little bit more than some of the other outposts. So on this side, any sulfur that isn't being used for our nuclear power plant that we will see gets dropped off and then put into one bin, and that gets dropped off at our AI expansion server thing in the swamp. And here we pick up our first sulfur for nuclear power plants. On our side, obviously, we're just doing our drop off of packaged turbo fuel, and then we're picking up a few things. Obviously, the time crystals, but we are also picking up a supply of steel beams, rotors, why did the to-do list come in? Alright. Rotors and heat sinks coming in through here. And that's being put in for items that's going to a nuclear power plant. And we get a little bit of rubber on the heatsink build. Next stop, back to the Nexus. Back to the Nexus from this angle. We get to pass over my 4,000 power storage units. That's the handle endgame variability. I'm trying to aim for 6,000, but not there yet. There's my original coal and compacted coal power plant. Beginning of the game. Here we're just gonna drop off some packaged turbo fuel. This is just the early builds. We got the aluminum floor, the quantum floor upstairs, and the electronics floor down here. And we saw what the initial setup looked like. But yeah, pretty much this was all that's needed really to beat the game in 213 hours. I also got everything on the map for that. Here we are going to load the initial stuff for our nuclear power plants. We had everything coming from 900 and some items per minute being added into the third bin. And then the next stop is going to be our nuclear power plant. Sometimes the animations are a little glitched with the timing. And here's the nuclear power plant. Over 600,000 megawatts coming out of this plant. 2,100 uranium being used per minute. Stuff from around the world, over 1,500 items per minute being brought in here with a complex sorting system to try to make sure that throughput is being used and does not get backed up. Basically, everything comes in, things that can go to multiple parts of the system get split, and then we have some backup systems, and then this kind of merges it back in halfway. We got one line that comes in, and when we split everything off, and each thing gets a bin. We will say bye to our train and come back later, show you guys everything. So some of the local builds, we got some concrete being made, some silica being made locally, and 6,000 quick wire per minute being made locally. Don't worry about the yellow. That happens with a bug of my hover pack switching power grids. Considering I've got like 60 or 70 power grids, it kind of happens decently enough. Here's much quick wire. Some water for that. Got everything coming in to the power plant. And each thing off our line is going to be split into bins for a power plant setup. Here's the nuclear power plants and the initial processing. Big, huge stack. Quick wire, sulfur, and silica for this section. We got our drone ports bringing in our sweet, sweet uranium from around the world. And above, we are dropping off the plutonium fuel rods for fuel for the drones, and all the water extractors for our power plants. These are basically these recipes. Come in through one of these. I did a very tight build, but that's what it looks like under here. All the pipes and belts. These are at 250%. 15 power plants per row. At least the ones that are running at 250%. The earlier ones are running at less than that. Then the uranium post-processing. All the uranium goods are split perfectly instead of running manifold, so I have less radiation in this section. I'm trying to minimize radiation. Here's all the processing into plutonium fuel rods. Not really trying to maximize those. That's the recipes I'm using for that. Yeah, each of these lines has 15 power plant, or yeah, 15 power plants each. I think it's like 11.6 plutonium fuel rods per minute. I don't quite have the maximum because some of the uranium is being used for nuclear bombs. But also we have slightly a bit fixonium set up because I am a bit of a completionist. So over here we have, I think, 6 per row, so we're only doing 100% for the first one, 300 per minute. And then I decided to do the bigger build. And my plutonium power, and then fixonium after, and I've got a shut-off valve here, which at the moment I'm just shutting it off because I had a little bit of an overflow thing here. For some reason we weren't getting enough electromagnetic control rods, so I'm bleeding the system at the moment. Got a bit of backup. Got the input turned off. Got the stuff. I'm able to get over 600,000 again for this section because use a little bit of uranium for those nuclear bombs. And just the main line, just smart splitting everything off, putting into bins, and all the extra gets sent back to base and into storage and then sunk. We'll head on over to. So the second part of the main train over here is dealing with nuclear. We bring in a lot of sulfur. There's 1356 coming in there. A lot of nitric acid gets brought in. There's 300 a minute there. 292 a minute there. 423 items per minute that couldn't be used here gets brought back to the Nexus. And some more sulfur and a little bit of nitrogen. Because I initially started using nitrogens and nitric acid, but it's more efficient on the trains to convert it in the outposts than to bring nitrogen in. It's basic. Nitrogen, still 800 a minute regardless of nitric acid or nitrogen. And you're able to use 4 times the nitrogen for each nitric acid, so basically turning nitric acid versus it's like transporting 3,200 nitrogen in one tank. But the nitrogen tanker is going to be needed anyways for cooling systems, so I don't find it a waste. We'll need it later. This was the original nitrogen gas plant. I'm just picking up some sulfur there for the nuclear build. Hit the last few outposts. This is where I add more trains onto the line. Build them here and then merge them in as I need to. I'll usually time my trains to see how long a circuit takes and then make sure I have enough trains for at least every 2 minutes. Again, just a typical outpost again, package fuel in, bring all the coal in, make time crystals, and time crystals out. Most of the outposts. The other side's not doing too much. Obviously there's going to be a nitric acid pickup and some sulfur being loaded in. The reason I have all the stops, even if I'm not using them yet, is I want my train line ready for expansion. So all the stops are put in place and they're all the same length to handle 12 containers each, going in each direction with 3 trains, so 15 long. If it has to go over that capacity, I guess I'm just screwed. But I think I should be okay. We have a train pretty close behind us. Definitely not 2 minutes apart. There's a few places where the trains can catch up to each other because some stops for the packaged turbo fuel don't need to be stopped every single time. So some trains end up catching up. But the space between the next stop, the Gold Coast and the Paradise Islands, it's a minute 35 seconds minimum per trains as a block. So that if anything's caught up, like the train behind me, it will stop and then gain extra space after this next pair of stations. Got Gold Coast. And the Gold Coast is where we're getting the majority of our rubber, well, majority of almost all of our plastic, and quite a bit of our rubber production for our AI expansion server build in the swamp. And this is where we pick it up. Let's see if I get the numbers on it before it clicks in. 1623 a minute there, 1040 minutes. And you see we got a train ahead of us. We'll have to wait for it. Oh, maybe not. But the train behind us definitely. It's definitely closer than a minute 35. This isn't using all of the oil in this area, but this is where I do plan on having most of the plastic rubber being made and transporting it around the world. That's what I have going for now. We have the other pipes set up for expansion. Now we have the longest part of the line between stations. This game. This is the Paradise Islands area where we plan on making a factory here. Nothing needed yet. There's quite a few resources in the area, but there's nothing that I've needed for the current builds specifically that was good to build here. But, I mean, eventually we'll build stuff here. I think it's the only stop that doesn't even have an outpost. Yeah. Back to the green fields. Drop off that package turbo fuel. Now the spacing with the train behind us should be a little more now. The train behind us catches up because of outposts like the next one, and I think there's like 3 outposts that don't need a lot of packaged turbo fuel, so only every few trains make the full stop, so it takes them longer, so you have a train catching up because it doesn't actually have to deliver anything. And then the Paradise Islands, the Gold Coast area, ends up putting in the space back at least to minute 35 space between trains. 2 back to back. Green crate, which is the final stop. That's before we go back to the swamp and make a full circuit. Now we're dropping off package turbo fuel. We see 20 per minute. So train every 2 minutes, 40. Stack is 100. You know, only every few trains are going to stop there, right? Processing 300. 15 time crystals per minute. I picked spots for my outposts for good amount of space to build, a lot of materials, and space to park nicely. And then there is one more mini factory that's only the other way. I saw there was a nitrogen outpost and another nitric acid one, but this one's a full nitric acid outpost over there, going just for the other train the other way. And that's the nitric acid being made for the nuclear power plant. I think it's doing 750 nitric acid a minute or 3,000 nitrogen in the area, I think, being processed over there. Back to the swamp. Where we'll drop off our plastic and rubber on the Gold Coast. A bunch of nitric acid. A little bit of iron being brought in. Some water. gathered. Back to the swamp megapoints. Look at all those auroras type of things into the sky. That is a lot of quantum codes. And there we go. That is one full circuit base tour. I guess it'll be a little bit more specific on this one. Oh yeah, this side's just picking up sulfur in the area for the nuclear power plant. Here's some of the numbers of what's coming up to this floor. We got 80 magnetic fields generators per minute, 80 crystal oscillators, 720 it's supposed to be. 11 room sheets. This is supposed to be 1200 time crystals, 80 supercomputers. This is 1200 trigons per minute, and 600 time crystals per minute, which is what's being brought up to this floor and being processed. First into neural quantums, super oscillators, obviously with the intermediary of dark matter crystals. And then obviously the expansion servers are the third row. And these are excited photonic matter. And then down the floor we have our trigons being made there. And obviously our time crystals for the local stuff. This is the aluminum processing on this floor, although the fourth floor is a little bit of logistics. So we get our supercomputers and our magnetic field generators and our trigons. Oh no, well maybe not trigons. Trigons is up above. I guess it would be fixed site ingots, I guess, technically. So all the aluminum. Here's the original aluminum setup, and actually the pipes are doing pretty good with this setup. So I looked at the net water coming in and put that all together, and then used the output water from the electrode aluminum scrap, and then put that into the water of the next one for the alumina solution, and then took the output again, put that into the next one, and then the output, and then put that into one of these. It's going into one, and then the excess over here goes into the other three, which cycle back on each other. Try to keep it lower than a double pipe, right? Then trying to minimize the amount of intersects that we go, which is why I don't have a pipe here. These two go and share on this side, these two go in and share on the other side back here. I have this just in case, but it's not really being used. So it looks like the pipes are managing on their own. They're not really shutting off much from imbalance, which is nice. So that might be a good setup for fluids. Fluids are tricky. I find when it's too close to the maximum 600, you get some real trickiness of having like generating too much yet too little at the same time. You get a lot of pipe waste. This is the electronics floor. A lot of copper ingots being built here. Deuterium. Some quartz crystal. What was that about? Thought I saw it off. Oh. We got our computers, our crystal oscillators. Nice to see everything glow. Everything should be running 100%, although I see kind of one going off and on somewhere over here. Maybe there's a backup. That's possible. Oh yeah, crystal oscillators might be backing up. Oh yeah, definitely. They shouldn't be, but it must mean the crystal oscillators were a little faster at the beginning. And then we got our first floor, which is our iron floor. Mostly stators, modular frames. Iron ingots being made back there. It's pitch black at dark, so you don't really get to see much, but it's nice to see these level 6 lines glow in the dark. It's nice to see this HP Omen laptop being able to handle this good frame rate. And then the water for well over 10,000 a minute, and obviously we have some uranium being picked up down below. And we got more water being given back from over here. Basically, this is our processing floor from unloading our trains, and then we do some belt mixing to make sure our stuff that comes in prioritizes the right belts first, so that our machines are getting what they're expecting. And we also are storing a bunch of backup storage, so that if we turn off and turn on our machines, we have enough here to get the process running before our trains. Because sometimes with the trains being, 40-minute circuit, like time crystal is going to take 40 minutes to get up to full production, So need some backup in case that gets trimmed. And that should pretty much cover it. So hopefully you enjoyed my tour. Not often you see all this amount of production on one train line and a factory this big. Not the most aesthetic factory, but it is definitely one that's churning out a lot of production. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm a fan of 20.